here's the key to sustainability, integral sustainability. And here's what's so confusing. And that is if you look at the right hand and the left hand, and you draw just a rough, simple graph. It doesn't even have to be in which upper or lower quadrants, just in the left hand and the right hand. In the left-hand quadrants, what you find with individuals is that in your interior awareness goes from egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric to cosmocentric. And that means the number of perspectives you can take into account and the number of other sentient beings, other humans, and then the other number of sentient beings that you consider and you fundamentally feel that you're a part of. So, even Arnie Ness got that part of the hierarchy correct. And it is a hierarchy. And Arnie Ness said it was a hierarchy. And as you know, in the green world, hierarchies are absolute anathema. But hierarchies, bad hierarchies are the cause of most oppression in the world. Good hierarchies are the cause of liberation. No forms of liberation without them. So in condemning all hierarchies, you condemn the solution to the world's sustainability problems. And this rampant condemnation of all hierarchies, which condemns the half that provide the solutions, has succeeded in green not coming up with a solution. They've done quite well on that. And the problem is, on the upper left, you have it going from egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric to cosmocentric. And that's just in one individual now. But in that one individual, the number of sentient beings you can identify with gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It goes from an individual to its family, to its tribe, to its nation, to civilization block, to all human beings, to all sentient beings, to all manifestation. So that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The number of people who can do that, the number of sentient beings who can do that, doesn't do like that. That goes the other direction. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so those two things get confused. And they think that, well, because the number of people that can do this gets smaller, that somehow it means that it's an elitism that's trying to exclude other people. And that's not fundamentally what it's trying to do. It's just the number of people that can embrace these larger stages gets fewer and fewer. And that's one of the paradoxes that confuses the daylights out of this field. And so what we're looking to do is increase the capacity to identify with more and more and more sentient beings, even though those sentient beings themselves won't be identifying with you. They will not extend the same courtesy to you that you will be extending to them. And if you look at the great web of life, and we're supposed to be one with the great web of life, we're supposed to embrace the great web of life, the number of human beings that can do that, first of all, only human beings can do it. Worms do not go around and say, I am one with the great web of life, and therefore I'm going to give some of my food to my brother deer. No, not even close. Human beings start to have that capacity, but not all human beings. By the time you get to red, it's still a first-person perspective. You can only take a first-person perspective. So if you're working with red values, and y'all are familiar with the sort of the altitude colors and spiral dynamics, by the time you get to red, it's still a first-person perspective. It's still, I don't care about the sustainability. I don't care about sustaining anything except myself. So, to hell with you is my approach to sustainability. And that's a pretty good summary of it. They're bumper stickers, To hell with you, sustainability. And it's like, and that goes all the way back to Paleolithic times. Remember the Mel Brooks, the first national anthem? Up with Cave 76 and to hell with all the rest. Well, that was the first national anthem. And that's what we have here still at red. By the time you get to amber, blue, meme, you can take a second-person perspective into account. So you can have an ethnocentric identity. So you're actually moving up and identifying with an entire block of human beings that share your values. Now, you can't go farther than that. And not because you choose not to, it's just you don't have the structures to. So it's not malevolence to say that I'm ethnocentric. It's not that I'm somehow have a choice. I can choose to be world-centric. I can choose to be ethnocentric. I choose to be ethnocentric. You don't have a choice. And that move up is an extraordinarily positive move up. In the course of human history, happened not more than about 11, 12,000 years ago. And what that means is in the history of the entire known universe, maybe 15 billion years, all of a sudden evolution itself, spirit itself, became so aware, it started to become aware of itself. It started to have a perspectives on other aspects of its own manifestation. And all of a sudden you get ethnocentric. And that's really quite extraordinary. And it is, all of a sudden, it's an identification with a chosen people, or just my tribe, my group, and so on. And everybody outside of that group, incidentally, is not only looked at upon, with suspicion, but often it's your job to either convert them or kill them. And if you kill them, that's not murder. That's God's justice, and it's good for you. And if you die and you've done that, then it's like a merit badge. And you get like extra good treatment. And if you kill yourself in the process of taking out infidels, that's a career promotion. When you die, you get bumped 3 or 4 ranks. That's like really great. So you have upward mobility in these religions. You can actually advance yourself by killing the hell out of other tribes, other groups. By the time you get to world-centric, which would be orange, egoic rational, you've added a third-person perspective. And that means basically you can identify not just with me and not just with us, but all of us. And in a fundamental sense, for the first time, you start to reach out to all human beings regardless of race, color, sex, or creed. And this is only 400 years old. This happened in a widespread scale with the Western Enlightenment. Then when you get to green, you can take a fourth-person perspective, and you start to realize that the first worldwide identities and these sort of universal systems tended to be monolithic, tended to be a little bit rigid, one size fits all, overlooked all the different local color and the richness and the extraordinarily rich tapestries of cultures around the world. And so because fourth person has a perspective on third person, it has a perspective on this universal system, and it sees that there can be many systems, and in fact, every culture is its own system. And they can't be reduced to each other. Now, you go too far with that, and then all of a sudden every person becomes their own system. And so pretty soon every person is their own little planetoid of their own values, and they have absolutely nothing to do with anybody else. And you get this massive fragmentation sets in with green. The downside of green is that it starts out trying to honor all different perspectives and ends up dishonoring them all equally. Because if I have a value structure, and it's absolutely no better than any other, then that's not a value structure at all. It's valueless. And this is what we get from green. You're not allowed to actually, and then all of a sudden you don't even have a value because you don't want to get caught holding the bag. And that's what happens with green. That's what happens with Gen X and Gen Y, is above all, they don't want to be duped. They will not stand up and say, I believe this. You won't hear it happen. Because if you say, I fundamentally really strongly believe this, it's taken to mean you are saying other things aren't worth something. And so you make other people uncomfortable whenever you say that. So kids coming out of Gen X and Gen Y, the slacker generation, is, okay, fuck it, I'm not even going to put forth a belief. And the only tone you're allowed, and this includes art, the only tone you're allowed is irony. And irony, the dictionary definition is saying one thing and meaning another. And it usually is kind of a put down. So if somebody's wearing some clothes, and you go, nice tie, right? What does that mean? Not nice tie, right? So all of a sudden, irony becomes your constant companion. And that's all you're really allowed. And if you read art criticism, that's it. It's just how much irony they have in it. And irony becomes the basic measure of success. And there are lots of words for irony. The dictionary synonym is hypocrisy. I think that's probably pretty accurate. So we end up basically instilling a hypocritical approach to sustainability if we try to come from green. It's a very difficult thing to do. All of a sudden, from green, then you get the jump to second tier. And many different developmentalists have seen this and given it different terms. And Claire Graves is not the first at all. Claire Graves was actually studying with Abraham Maslow, who saw it as a jump from deficiency needs, where his first 4 or 5 needs where you're motivated to do something because you feel a lack. I lack self-esteem, and therefore I need it. I lack belongingness, therefore I need it. I lack security, therefore I need it. I lack food, therefore I need it. But all of a sudden he found that people that made a leap, and he called it an extraordinary leap, into being needs, had an entirely different motivation. And the motivation there was not that I need something, but that I feel so full I'm overflowing. And I'm motivated to basically communicate it. It's a superabundance that drives individuals. So what we're working with is how do we, again, take and indicate that there is this vertical dimension, that if you want to get sustainability out into the world, you can at least language why people should look at sustainability and tailor it to the value structure at whatever altitude they're at. And that's, of course, what David Johnson has done, and done an absolutely extraordinary job of. And we've interviewed him a couple times on Integral Naked because I think it's just such an absolutely extraordinary thing that he's done. And this is what one of the things that we're using. And it means that because you're at Integral, you can actually use any of the first-tier value structures and communicate what you're trying to say to somebody at those altitudes. And that has a chance of succeeding. Whereas if you're green, for example, or orange, you are going to try to get red or get blue to do sustainable goals by trying to convince them that green values are the right values. And if they adopt green values, that'll be cool. The chances of that happening are 0. And so it doesn't seem to stop, that. I mean, but so we have a way out of that. And the way is that once you break into second tier altitude, once you get the escape velocity and move beyond into second tier, then you can use the entire first tier as a palette, actually, in terms of painting a picture that is inclusive, truly. Another metaphor is you can hit a chord that has all of the various altitudes available to you. And in your own awareness, the thing that you notice most of all is this extraordinary sense of freedom. And that freedom is accompanied by an extraordinary sense of fullness, because you can also inhabit all of these things without identifying with them. And so that double sense of freedom and fullness is one of the hallmarks of sustainability as well. But that's just sort of an excursus again on the fact that less than 5% or so has second tier. And in the meantime, what do? Well, at the very least, you have to convince leaders, and you're working with leaders, that they have to take that into account. And if you have leaders who are at second tier, it's okay. Because by and large, they can get stuff done that represents second tier.